Welcome to Regulatory Ramblings. Our podcast today is brought to you by the University of Hong Kong's RegTech Lab, the HKU SCF FinTech Academy, the Asia Global Institute, and HKU's edX Professional Certificate in FinTech, with support from the university's Faculty of Law. Much has been said about quantum computing and how it's going to revolutionize the world, and a part of that is reflected in the new Cold War between the US and China, with Beijing constantly eager to tout its advances in the field and the American mainstream press screaming about how their country is falling behind. It's almost reminiscent of the US response to the Sputnik launch in the late 50s, how that led the US to putting a man on the moon in a madcap race to finish before the 60s. Indeed, some have gone as far as to claim that the security of cryptocurrency transactions can be breached by quantum computing, notwithstanding the much-touted NSA national security level encryption that Pollyannish virtual asset advocates say exists when using a blockchain. Our discussion today, therefore, will center on how advances in quantum computing can compromise blockchain transactional security and anonymity. Our guest is Mumbai-based Kapil Dhiman. He's the co-founder and CEO of Quaranium. As a seasoned entrepreneur and leader with 12 years of diverse international consulting experience in dealing with enterprises, startups, and funds, he's also a former Web 3.0 leader at PwC India and an award-winning CEO who crafted the Metaverse Startup of the Year 2023 from scratch. A distinguished global speaker and author, Kapil has helped over 20 startups in the Web3 ecosystem with their go-to-market and product strategies. And with that, I turn over to Kapil. Kapil, thank you so much for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure, Ajay, being on this podcast with you. I'm really looking forward to having an amazing conversation. And thank you so much for the kind introduction and setting the context so perfectly.
Pleasure to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? And how did you end up on the path you're on?
So I'm a regular guy, Ajay. I grew up, so my father served in the Indian Air Force. So I was born in a city called Gwalior in Madhya Pradesh. And then every 4 years, my father would get transferred to a new city. So my upbringing has been all over the country. And I think that gave me a lot of multicultural insights and allowed me to adapt to new environments much fast. And growing up in a military-driven environment also imbibed in me a sense of discipline, as well as competitiveness to kind of be at the front. Learned a lot from my father's way of, operating, and half my family has been around in the uniform. So I draw a lot of learning from there. But when it came to me deciding a career, I realized early on that business is something that really attracted me. I love being unique and at the same time diversified in the approaches I like to take. Creativity is something that really gets me going. So these things combined made me take a decision that I'm not fit for the uniform, and I have to seek a career in the entrepreneur side of things. But education was the starting front for it. So I studied and I was a school topper, and then did my CA, and after that joined the consulting life. Spent about good, like you mentioned, 12 years in the consulting world, growing across various roles. Worked in the legal domain, tax domain, very aggressively on the regulatory side of things as well. Then on the technology consulting, working with multinational clients, startups, government regulations, liaising with the governments very closely, helped me kind of shape a global perspective. But at the same time, I believe that the best kind of education one can have is a self-education, and that has played a very big role in my life. All this while my work experience allowed me a very global perspective because of the places I worked, starting with BMR, then PwC. These are like global organizations. Gave me a very, very good and very strong platform to have an exposure to almost all sorts of business practices that one can expect. I spent a lot of time in self-educating myself as well, like preparing for civil services to start with, because I just realized that if I have to operate a business in the global space, I need to dive much deeper. And understanding of geopolitics, history, psychology, all of these things play a very important role. So I did that quite a lot, and kept moving up. And in 2017 or 2018 is when I discovered the world of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And as a consultant mindset, you like to kind of do a lot of research before you dive in or take a decision on anything. And since my brain was being wired that way, I started digging in a lot deeper, and did a lot of research around this interesting topic of what is blockchain, what is Web 3.0, what is cryptocurrencies. And the more I read, the more I fell in love. And I realized this is the biggest revolution that is happening in our time. As entrepreneurial as I was, this was like a clear indication that this is the big thing that I have to play a part in. I'm a 90s kid. I grew up when the internet revolution had already taken place. And of course, I could not participate in that. And I've always believed that I'm born for a special purpose. I'm here on this planet to create an impact. I always believed that. So I saw this as that medium, and I dived deeper into it. And since then, the only thing I've done is growing my network, growing my expertise, growing my knowledge and business acumen in this space. Built a social media startup for using for the media entertainment sector, using the decentralized technologies. I was running a music label back then, and that's another interesting life journey that I've had. But on the business side, when I discovered blockchain, I created a social media platform, then created a dating app, and exited out of those. And then, of course, a life in PwC was amazing. When I moved out, I built a Metaverse platform, like you mentioned, which was the fastest growing immersive experience startup in the country. And end of last year, I decided it's time to now solve one of the biggest problems that the world is going to face. And that was quantum computing and blockchain. And that's how QA was born.
Well, a couple of things come to mind. The stereotype, it's hackneyed, but stereotype, the perception, the cliche is if you grow up in a military family, it's very structured, it's very disciplined, some might say rigid, that can put a crimp in creativity. But it didn't happen that way with you, given all the things you've done, in different fields, being a serial entrepreneur. It didn't impair your creativity at all. But I don't know, maybe the counter argument can be made that growing up in a structured environment like that, did that discipline aid you? I mean, in what you did later on in life, or were you a disciplined person by nature? I mean, I guess it comes down to the nature versus nurture debate.
I'll put it in two baskets, the way I would address this question. Number one, the very interesting point that you touched upon is the discipline imbibing in.
Right.
So growing up in that environment definitely made me a much more disciplined person.
And you have to be. And you have to be as an entrepreneur. So yeah, that's
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Recently I started rolling out some new policies for the company, and the first one was 3 o'clock means 2:57. Right, that's how important discipline is for me, even in an unstructured environment that we may operate in. Even while, in 2016 or 17, I decided to pursue a journey in the music industry. I started off as a DJ, a professional DJ. I was playing at nightclubs. Then I became a hip hop rapper, music producer, etc. So two things happened then. When I went and told my father, and this is when I'm a chartered accountant and doing really well as a consultant during daytime in my job, but still I was not satisfied. The curious me, the entrepreneurial side of me, always knew that I can do something more. The one thing that I hate is wasting time, and again, I think this came from the culture I grew up in. Timing is uh, time is the most expensive commodity or the asset that you have in life. So I can't sit idle. And when I see that, I can do something much more instead of relaxing, Netflixing or anything, I would start doing, something more. So that's what happened in 2016, 2017 as well. And then I told my father that I'm, exploring being a DJ or a music producer. He was like, I think you got a shock or something. He was like, I told you to become an Air Force officer. You didn't listen. You're doing well as a CA. Now, why do you want to experiment with your life and what do you want to do? So that's, I think, a constant, but I think that comes as a care and as a love of being a father. He's always worried for me because I take a lot of risky bets.
Well, it happened with Jim Morrison, if I may interject. It happened with Jim Morrison of the Doors, right? That his father didn't fully understand it, but he appreciated that there was a path his son went down, and he was a smashing success. But you know what I'm saying? That the generation, the view was, you graduate, people of that generation are thinking you either serve or you get a job after you graduate and you're a productive member of society, not this, you go off to LA and you become a rock star. Again, even that, notwithstanding the money and the millions that flowed in, that he was proud of his son, but he perhaps couldn't relate to it. And I almost sense there were overtones of that with your father.
Absolutely correct. I think that's exactly the same way here. So even today, like my parents, they're definitely proud of me. They love me. They mean the world to me. But they don't understand what I do because they come from a different world. And
or as President Reagan even said to one of his sons, whose politics also veered to the left and Reagan was more to the right. He said to, I think, his son, the dancer, I don't know if it's Ron Reagan, one of the other sons, but he said to him, I love you because you're my son, but you're not an easy person to understand or get along with.
I can relate to this so well. Yeah, this is the same situation in my family, 100%.
The other thing that leapt to mind is the application of blockchain to the entertainment industry. That's something I've never quite heard articulated.
Right. So this, the entertainment industry piece, this came from, so I spent about good 3.5, 4 years being an entertainer myself. Starting as an underdog DJ, then I became a music producer, making beats for other people. Then I started rapper, performing, made like 50, music production videos, wrote more than 90 songs. So I was like a hardcore hustling entertainer, struggling artist, as you can call it, as the 90% of the people out there, right? But at the same time, I had a very good business acumen because of my education and because of the exposure I had and the kind of drive in me to do much more. I had a good business acumen as well. So I could see this gap filling in. A lot of my, contemporaries, amazing artists, were not able to grow and excel because they were just thinking as an artist and not thinking art as a business. And I always talk about this even today, that India is one of the most populous, or the most populous country. The entertainment industry of India is huge. The music industry has tremendous potential, but it still lags behind the music industry of the West. And the only reason is artists here think of art only as passion, and they are not able to merge it with the business sense. Whereas if you go and see in the West, a lot of artists understand business acumen, or they get opportunities to work with people who has business sense and kind of help them grow. So this is the gap I noticed in India. And hence, when I was an artist as well, I was able to do decently well because I operated it as a business while being passionate about it. And when I discovered the blockchain technology, I realized, I think this is something that can provide freedom to artists, Because typically, if you see the model that works in music industry, very simple, is an artist has to go to a music label or a manager who will help him or her find shows and other placements across the brand and take a cut out of it. Very simply put, this is how the this is how the industry operates. Now the artists don't understand how brands operate, how shows operate, how a lot of other product placements happen, and hence they are like completely at the mercy of these music labels and business managers who sometimes exploit them as well. But if you are able to create a platform for the artists which allow them to reach the audience directly and create a very strong fan base and connect with them directly and provide them a platform where they can release their work directly using that platform and are able to monetize it as well. This eliminates the requirement of having a middleman, so to say, which is in our case, a music label or a business manager. That's what I wanted to create.
Or would it obviate the need to find an agent?
100%. 100%. So very simply, I've always believed anybody who has followers, money follows him or her, right? It's as simple as that. And this is how exactly the music industry operates as well, or the entertainment industry operates as well. Today, and this has always been a long-standing debate, right? Why one actor gets paid more than the other actor? Because that actor is able to pull the audience to the theater. Why does one singer gets paid 10x more than the other singer? Because this singer is able to pull the audience to the arena, right? So it's all about creating a fan base. And
Is it that? Because I mean, look, and I know many of our listeners may not be aware of this, but in the Indian film industry for the longest time, and for the longest time, the money was in the movie soundtracks, which would often be released before the movies themselves. But for the longest time, they say you had people like Asha Bhosle, Lata Mangeshkar. They dominated. They got pretty much all the work, and the other singers were complaining. They've got more money than they need. Why are they taking all the work? Why are they not making more for us? And because we need to feed our families too. We need to pay our bills too. But the critique was, they're monopolizing the market. They're siphoning off all the money and not leaving anything else, not leaving much low hanging fruit for the rest of us. But the counter argument was, no, these producers, these financiers want to see a return on their investment, and they're guaranteed a good return if they stick with, Auntie Asha or Auntie Lata, and they stay with them, versus the lesser known, as they would call them, backup singers.
Correct. Absolutely right. And, this is exactly how. So if you see the progression in the entertainment industry while we are at it, right? Initially, the example, the decade or the age of example that you took, music industry and film industry operated as one, right? So music will go in the movie, gets distributed, and there was like sharing of profits that came out of there. As we advanced, we saw an independent music industry also growing out. That is where independent albums coming out, even if it is not in the movies, you can release an album, and that is the age from where T-Series saw a lot of bump or rather growth in their business, because independent music started becoming famous. Now, still, by being independent, there was a lot of connection between these music finding place in some A-listed channels, TV channels, etc., etc., etc. And then now third came the age that we are in today, where even a very good artist who has no connection with the world whatsoever, if he has a right distribution channel and is creative enough to create a good presence on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc., he does not need anybody. He does not need a music label. He does not need a movie to be casted in. He releases a music, it's find its place, and it's famous, right? And then the show operators try to contact him for shows. Now, it's all about how do you make these third category of people more and more powerful. This is where freedom is in the entertainment industry, and this is how creativity will be sprouted. The example that you took is bang on. And that's exactly, and that's such a beautiful point, because that's exactly what I always try to kind of educate the artists on the entertainment side. The producers or the financiers will not look at it as a passion or supporting an artist. No, for them, it is business. You sing well, you can pull the crowd, you can make money. Okay, I'm hiring you. And that is why they did not go ahead with any other artists at that age. They wanted to do maximum work with Lata Mangeshkar or Asha Bhosle, because they were certain that even if I pay them a lot of money, I will make my return, right? But the artists today always see it as passion. Many artists we see working for free. No, I love this. I'll someday make it. No, it's business at the end of the day. Your art you should love, but also have a business sense, because the person you are dealing with is not seeing it as passion, is seeing it as business. So you also have to look at it at the same way. Now, this is, the growth of the entertainment industry, like the 3 stages that I spoke about, where we stand today. This piece is very important to be cracked and understood by the artists and the entertainers to start sprouting and to start kind of expanding.
Turning back to you,
Yes.
what was it like starting your own firm? Why embark on the entrepreneurial journey? I mean, from what I've seen, being self-employed, I mean, starting your own business is a tough slog.
Yeah.
And the path of an entrepreneur is often very lonely. It can be lucrative. You can certainly make more money than being someone else's employee, but it can be very lonely.
It may sound cliche, but 2 things have driven me taking these decisions. Number 1 is my belief, and my very, very strong belief that I'm born to be great. I am born to solve a much larger problem and to create an impact on the world. Before I leave, I will create something that at least the next 2 generations will happily and proudly use, and it will make the world much more efficient when I came in. This is one belief that I've always I don't remember not having this belief. As far as I remember, I've always believed this. So every decision that I have taken in my professional life, or whatever I have done, I was doing really well as a consultant, making good money, having good exposure. But every evening when I will come back home, I'll ask this question: is what I'm doing or did what I did today gonna solve this ultimate goal that I have, this ultimate belief that I had? When I found the answer as no, I picked up and started doing something. That's where, becoming an entertainer came into the picture. That, okay, I'll create something, one of the biggest music labels. Then that's where the entertainment social media platform came into the picture. The dating app came into the picture. Then I built the Metaverse Startup of the Year. And I've seen the progression. With every venture I have built, I have seen it tremendously much, growing much faster and at a much higher scale than before. And it kept giving me confidence that, yes, I'm on the right track. Entrepreneurship is not one startup. It's really a journey. It's a lifetime. So that's number 1. My belief system that I'm going to leave this world much more efficient before I die. And the second is, I think I love chaos. I don't like comfort.
Do you thrive on the degree of chaos that you see in India? I mean, it's an ordered madness, but from people in the West or in the developed world, or where things work well most of the time, I mean, where a power outage is enough to get people screaming bloody murder and decry the government, as we happened recently in Hong Kong. A few housing estates without power. Did you thrive on that type of chaos? I mean, is it conducive to running a business? I mean, I remember speaking once to one of the correspondents from CNN I-18, the CNN affiliate in India, and we were talking about Bombay, and I was like, it just the way things are, it just, you can't do as much in Bombay as you can in Hong Kong.
Yes.
Over the course of a day.
Yes, sure.
It impedes achievement. And she said, no, that city thrives on achievement, on drive, on competitiveness. Now, you may be a goal-oriented person, but the system may not always facilitate it. But no. If anything, that city is about ambition. Now, obviously, improvements to the infrastructure extending the ceiling bridge from Bandra all the way to Nariman Point. That's huge.
Mhm.
But it's an ordered chaos for those that care to observe it up close and personal. But it drives many Westerners crazy, and they couldn't function in that environment. But you say you thrive on it.
So when I refer to chaos, Ajay, what I mean is not perfection, right? And a lot of things. A comfort zone is when you are happy in the state that you are in. That's being like really comfortable. And I think being comfortable is the biggest enemy of humanity. If human civilization has to grow, all of us have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And if we have to disrupt, then we have to be comfortable with chaos. I'll give an example. A still water, right? Looks so peaceful, looks so calm. Just, add a drop of water on top of it, and you will see a lot of signs of, disruption within that layer of water. This is how life operates. 80 to 85% of humans are in that still water phase. Comfortable, okay, move as you go, proceed as the life takes you, go wherever the life takes you, be on automatic mode, happy, I'll do my 9 to 5, I'll spend time with my family. That's good, right? And I respect that. My point is that makes me uncomfortable. That makes me that I'm completely wasting my time. That makes I'm not that. I like it when I'm able to create some sort of noise and some sort of disruption, and be really, really in a difficult situation. I don't like that kind of a comfortable zone. And
But then the question is, do you ease yourself into it, or do you take the
yes.
shock therapy approach and just dive into the deep end?
I always so there are two parallel things that moves in my mind. Number one is creating this sort of deception which allows innovation. Because if you have to challenge the status quo, you really have to kind of shake things up, and that's what I mean by chaos. So I really like to shake things up, go the risky bit, and try to kind of change the status quo as much as I can every day of my living life. And at parallel, train my mind to be really balanced in these situations. I do a lot of meditation. I read a lot of books. Every day, I calm myself down. I do some bit of yoga, and whatever it takes to keep my mind balanced and take really thoughtful decisions, even in this state of chaos. If I have to change the world, number one I have to do is create this chaos, to create this disruption. A lot of things will change because of this. A lot of, nuances will open up when I trigger this button. But at the same time, being a driver of this, I have to take right decisions. Otherwise, this will become madness. Madness is not the ultimate outcome that you want. You want results. To drive results from these chaotic situations or this disruption or this innovation, I use these as synonyms. You have to be of a balanced mind. You have to be of a very, very thoughtful and calm approaches that you have to take, being very patient in terms of driving these things. I always look at it as pieces of Legos. You first kind of break it apart to figure out, okay, now let's see what's the best you can make out of these scattered pieces. Then patiently kind of put each piece together and kind of create a beautiful structure. So I parallelly train myself and spend a lot of time in kind of, taking right decisions, even in these disrupting situations that I like to create.
So that brings us to the present day. That's the story so far. Tell us about your current company, Quaranium. What does it do?
So Quaranium is building a decentralized infrastructure that is going to be secure even from the attacks of quantum computers. Now, this baby was born when, again, I was on a journey. I took a long career break, and I decided that I'm going to find a much bigger challenge, a much bigger war to fight. which is going to leave an impact and ultimately take me to the vision I have of solving a much bigger problem for this world. And quantum computing is, I think, one of the best things that's happening in our age. The developments of quantum computers is going to solve so many problems and provide so much faster computational power to our industries that will drive innovation at least at the 10x speed of what we see today. I speak about a new world where these emerging technologies, quantum computing, AI, blockchain, and IoT are going to come together and create a new world which has never been even imagined before. So as many pros as quantum computing has, one con also that it has is this same much faster and much more powerful computational power that can solve a lot of problems can also break the security encryptions that we use today in the digital world. We feel happy and we feel safe today because we feel secure. Today we are having this conversation over Zoom. We can comfortably talk about anything, having faith and having the belief that this conversation is secure. But the moment we get even 1% of a risk that this conversation can be decrypted and somebody can listen to it,
it is possible. I've had Zoom calls that were hacked.
100%. Yeah, that's why recently Zoom moved to post-quantum cryptography as well. So that's the kind of the world that we are moving towards, where at one side we are seeing brilliance in the growth of quantum computing, but the same power can break the security encryption, and that's a threat to at a foundational level happiness of humans, and at one level above that is like financial as well as privacy security of everything that we do digitally. Now, this is the problem that I identified, and what I wanted to do with it is build something to solve this problem in an industry that I really understand, and that was the Web3 and the blockchain industry. And that's when we have three co-founders. We came together, all of us bring a different expertise on the table, and we decided to build a decentralized infrastructure using post-quantum cryptography algorithms. Anything that gets built on this infrastructure, I like to call it the foundation of the new world, will be secure. We cannot be hacked, and it will process transactions much faster than any other infrastructure that you have seen today. By building this, what I aim to build is like a new foundational layer for the future on which anybody in the world can come and build anything that they like. So it is going to be the cheapest infrastructure to build on, the safest and the fastest infrastructure that anybody, any college kid, any school kid can come and deploy their applications on this. Even the biggest of the biggest organizations, we are working very closely with some of the biggest organizations in the world as we speak. They can deploy their millions of billions of worth of dollars of transactions on this. So it's like built for everybody. That's what Quaranium is.
Definitions are important.
Yeah.
And people throw this term of quantum computing around very casually in, the colloquial vernacular, and just everyday common discussions. This is someone who's knowledgeable. What should we understand quantum computing to mean?
Well, I'll give a very simplified explanation for our audiences to as a comparison to what we use today.
Yes, and with an eye towards lay people, with an eye towards the lady. Explain it to me if I was 5 years old.
The computers that we use today, okay, they use for processing anything that we do on a computer. For example, this conversation that we are having over Zoom requires some bit of power, requires some bit of computational power, and then it allows us to do any kind of an activity on the computer. If I watch a YouTube video, it requires, let's say, for example, random example, I'm saying 10 computational power. If I start playing a game, then it may require 100 computational power. If I'm just sending an email, it may require 5 computational power, right? But any activity that we do on a computer requires some bit of power or a computational power. Now, the current classical computers that exist use bits 0 or 1 to do these kind of calculations or computation. They can either be 0 or be 1. That's very simply if I put it. Quantum computers use qubits, which means they can be 0 and 1 and a combination of both, which allows them to be in a multiple state at a given time, and their computation power increases tremendously because of that. Because of this foundational difference that exists between a classical computer and a quantum computer. And hence, if I take another example, if you ask me what is 5 multiplied by 5, I will say 25. Then you will ask me what is 5 multiplied by 10, I will say 50. Then if you ask me what is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 multiplied by 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I'll start thinking. If I am like a mathematical genius, I will answer it. If I'm not, then I'll take a lot of time to kind of process. I may not even answer. So that's buffering. Same way our computers also operate. Classical computers, because they have a limitation on the kind of processing they can do because of using bits 0 or 1, after a point of time or beyond a specific complexity.
So the binary nature of mainstream computing is an impediment?
Yes. That's precisely what it is. Because they can't solve a mathematical calculation beyond a certain difficulty. And hence, the security algorithms that exist today are based exactly on this limitation that the current classical computers have. Now, because the strength of classical computer is still point A to solve, the security algorithms that are devised today, like RSA or elliptic curve, are at A plus 10, right? So the calculations that they use to encrypt anything is much more complex. And hence, our computers cannot crack it. And hence, the world is safe. Enters quantum computers. Because their processing power is 1,000 million times more because of using qubits, they can solve and crack the current encryption security algorithm that is used in seconds. That's what the threat is.
People hearing this are going to freak out. They're going to be like, "Oh my God, this is like Mission Impossible level type stuff." So, if we talk about the specific nature of the threat, how is it that advances in quantum computing can compromise blockchain transactional security and anonymity? Because I think, by this point, experts agree that having NSA or GCHQ level encryption is no longer foolproof. It's no longer an absolute shield. As experts have said to me, I'm not going to tell you it can't be done. Someone knowing how to do it can pull it off. And increasingly, the tools are getting more effective to do it.
100% correct. And to kind of place importance on this topic, I'll just mention some stats. Around in 22 or 23, US government passed a regulation that the sensitive departments have to move to post-quantum cryptography. Zoom, as we spoke about already, recently moved to post-quantum cryptography. Apple recently quantum secured their iMessages. As early as 2022, JP Morgan announced that there is a dire need for a quantum secure blockchain. NIST is an institution based out of the US, has been working very closely with the US government and a cybersecurity cell there since last 8 years to develop post-quantum cryptography algorithms, which can become the new standards to be used in the age of quantum computers. So that's how important and that's how critical this topic is, and moving in this direction is, right? Now, having said that, having highlighted the importance and why the world is moving in this direction, having identified the risk as well, how does it impact the world of blockchain? All the blockchains that we see today, for the security algorithms, they use something as they call elliptic curve cryptography. Now, I'll take an example of how usually a wallet or a private key, how transactions happen on blockchain. Whenever you create a wallet, that's like the first thing that you have to do to kind of interact on chain. Your private key gets generated. Then from that, applying elliptic curve cryptography, which is a mathematical factorization of two very large numbers as an encryption, is applied on that, and then your public key gets generated. On that public key, some hashing algorithm is applied and your public address gets generated. Now, this is the public address that you exchange with each other. I give you my public address, you can send money on this. And this is how transactions usually happen, right? Now, the nature of blockchains are, even if your public address is used as one, your public key gets exposed on the network. So anybody who has fair understanding of, finding data on the chain can get access to public keys. But today, as we stand, if somebody has your public key, they cannot do anything with it because elliptic curve cryptography is allowed and nobody can break that ECC cryptography to derive your private key. If somebody gets access to your private key, then they have your entire wallet and that's literally end of the tunnel, right? That's why things are safe today. If I give another stat, about 65% of Ethereum and about 25% of Bitcoins, their public key is exposed on the network because of the way they operate. Enter quantum computers. There is a Shor's algorithm which was released as early as 1924 by Professor Shor. Using a Shor algorithm on a quantum computer can break this elliptic curve cryptography super quick. Which means if somebody gets access to your public key, they can use Shor algorithm on a quantum computer of a specific qubit size, of course, and get access to your private key. And that's where disasters start happening. As per the Deloitte report, this is the number that I quote, 65% of Ethereum and 25% of Bitcoins are prone to quantum attacks. The value is more than $550 billion, if I'm not wrong. And that is why creating infrastructures and creating blockchains from scratch, which replaces this elliptic curve cryptography and puts a post-quantum cryptography algorithm, which even quantum computers can't break, is the necessity. That's how we see the world of blockchains now evolving. We are looking at a world where everything is being spoken about tokenized. Some reports say $40 billion industry, some reports say $1 trillion industry, God knows, everybody's coming out with a different number. But the fact of the matter is, we are looking at a world where almost everything is looking at being tokenized, being put on chain, having some sort of digital presence. Where are you going to store it? If I tell you there is even 1% chance that the wealth that you're going to store online can be attacked by somebody having access to quantum computers 1 year down the line, aren't you going to be scared? That's why we need to quantum secure this. That's why you're hearing Vitalik from Ethereum going all over the place and shouting off the roof that the most important priority for Ethereum is to quantum secure itself. So that's the future. It's not an if, it's a when. It's mandatory. You cannot operate in the world of decentralized infrastructure without having a quantum secure infrastructure.
Rather ominous and foreboding. Look, clearly every nation state, every jurisdiction, every country is going to come up with its own rules. I guess what I'm wondering is, within each jurisdiction, should quantum computing be regulated across the board, uniformly across the land, or should each sector using such technologies, each sector that uses quantum computing, come up with its own rules?
Well, this is a very interesting question, and regulations in general has always been a good point of debate in the industry that we are speaking about. When it comes to specifically quantum computing, because a lot of the things are interconnected, quantum computing and blockchain is not, let's say, one industry as such. Blockchain is an industry in which we are talking about the implications of creating a quantum security now. Quantum computing is a very, very, very important focus for global nations right now. China has deployed, I think, more than $10 billion, followed by US, European Union, Canada. India has its own national quantum mission. Middle East is doing a lot of things. So every region of the world, every country around the world is investing a lot of money on quantum computing from the point of view of gaining its benefits. And, quantum computing has a lot of benefits in the medical, healthcare sector, financial services sector, space technology, everything. And now we are looking at First it was the computer race, then it was the space race, now it's the quantum race that we are looking at. So it's a lot is happening, and every country is doing its bit to kind of accelerate their agenda in this particular space. Now, in terms of how do we see the regulations, if you ask me, my individual point of view is we need to have a hybrid approach here. First is having some baseline regulations common across the globe. And I think that's going to be the challenging part. Use of quantum technology, exchange of knowledge, exchange of information, joint development efforts, joint benefits to the region, etc., etc. All these things can kind of fall in place for the use of the baseline regulations across the board, so that humanity at large benefits from it. And then on top of it, industry-wise specific regulations for specific countries. Now, for example, in India, we see that the blockchain and the crypto industry is not as favored as you would see it in the Middle East. So we cannot expect a regulation around quantum and blockchain within India as fast as we can expect it in the Middle East or other regions of the world. So that is where that is what I mean with the specific use cases and specific verticals being customly regulated by each geography coming into picture. So that's how, if you ask me, that's how my model of regulations around this topic would look like.
What are the, to come back to something you said, and also my point about the example I gave earlier about the Sputnik and then the space race culminating in the first lunar landing in 1969, that what are the national security implications of the race, the competition in quantum computing for different countries? I mean, look, I'm not a techie, I'm not tech savvy, but my visceral reaction is to say, a instinctive reaction is to say, yes, quantum computing has military applications, though I would struggle to articulate what they are. What are your thoughts? Are there what are the national security implications? Are there military applications to this?
I'll take two examples to answer this question. First, using a more foundational example to make it relatable to the larger audiences that are listening to us, and then I'll take it and take an extrapolated version to the military application that you spoke about. One of the applications of our infrastructure we are creating at Quaranium is a decentralized quantum secure infrastructure for the IoT sector, Internet of Things. Now, when I speak about this, I get a lot of questions that why, first of all, why do you need a decentralized infrastructure for IoT? And then why do you need quantum security for IoT? What is even the need? A very simple example that I take is we are moving to a world where autonomous vehicles, driverless cars, robots are looked at being used quite a lot, right? Now, for these autonomous and driverless cars and for these robots to operate, they connect to a server, they communicate with a server, right? There's a data through their cameras, they capture data, they send it to a server, and the server sends them, okay, what do you have to do next? That's how usually something operates. And that's when the car takes left, right, brake, or the robot lifts his hand, etc., etc., etc. It's a communication interface. Everything, the camera captures something, sends back to the server sends the reaction, okay, this is what you have to do. Imagine this server getting hacked. Imagine this communication channel getting hacked by a supercomputer. What can happen? And somebody gets access to this robot or this driverless car. You're looking at a haywalk. And that's why you need an infrastructure which is unhackable. And that is why we come into the picture and create an infrastructure that is quantum secure and seemingly fast to facilitate these transactions. Now, multiply this and apply this to military security. There are satellite communications that we talk about. There is encrypted data, encrypted communications that gets exchanged across the globe by military organizations. Somebody sitting near a supercomputer, breaking these algorithms and getting access to these confidential data or even satellite communications. You have the answer. You can just imagine to what extent the repercussions of this can go. And hence, the dire need to of cybersecurity in this area.
It's something that interests me because a lot has also been said about the connection between AI and quantum computing. That once quantum computing reaches a certain mature state, that then we'll be fully able to harness the ultimate potential of artificial intelligence. That therefore, the implication is, at present, there's a mismatch between computing power and the ability to use AI to its fullest. So does that mean then that the AI we're currently using isn't real AI and we're still waiting for the real thing, but that means more advanced quantum computing? Is that true? And if so, what's the timeline?
Oh, well, an interesting angle to it. But every technological advancement or a breakthrough has to go through stages, right? The current AI has been like a breakthrough in technology in our age, and we are already seeing tremendous applications of it, tremendous value adds to it using the AI technologies. So I won't say that what the kind of AI that we're using today is not real, but in the larger scheme of things, seeing the potential of where it can lead, I would say currently we are using narrow AI, which means that the applications, the processing of data, ultimately what is AI, right? You process a lot of information and then you kind of give an output in a desired format, whether it is images that you're talking about, whether it is text that you're talking about, audio now, or films, etc., etc. Everywhere we are seeing an application, but ultimately it's processing of data and then giving an output. Now, how efficiently you can process the input, which is the data, how many data points you can kind of consolidate, probability of mixing up things together and then giving an output. That's where the key is. That's where the beauty of the ultimate a better outcome for AI is. Currently, using the GPUs and the computers that we are able to achieve, let's say, X kind of an output. Quantum computing, because of their massive computational power running on qubits, can multiply these computations and these calculations and processing of data by, I don't know how many times, like 1,000 times, million times. That's where the real AGI, artificial general intelligence, will come into picture, which is machines operating and responding like humans would do. That's the ultimate vision for the AI industry, right? Like getting output from machines just like a human would do. Ultimately, that's what every company is trying to crack and getting closer to more and more. For that, you need like a lot of processing power technologically, and that's what quantum computers are expected to provide. So once that becomes a reality, we will see a much more advanced and a much more, human version of the AI technologies compared to what we see today, which is more of a machine version of AI technologies. I think that's how I would rather categorize it before and now and later.
Okay, so thank you. Let's ask you about the whole concept of the paradigm, the dichotomy of permissionless, decentralized infrastructure. The reason I ask is because on a recent episode of Regulatory Ramblings, it was episode 47 for our listeners, if you'd like to go back and listen. We had Linda Zhang on the show, and she penned a piece for CoinDesk, and the crux of it was that her point was that regulators are permitting banks to tokenize financial assets, such as bank deposits, U.S. Treasuries, corporate debt, but they want institutions to use permission networks rather than the decentralized blockchains that keep assets safe from hackers. I mean, the crux of her argument was that encouraging the use of permission networks over permissionless blockchains will inevitably lead to security attacks. I mean, let me quote what she said. Critically, this wasn't discussed. How the rules would treat the use of permission networks by the big banks to tokenize real-world assets and liabilities in a mission that neglects critical new vulnerabilities for the global financial system. And the concentration of attacks vectors in the big banks, she said, that controlled permission networks is like sticking targets on their backs. I mean, I guess it comes down to encouraging the use of permission networks over permissionless blockchains might lead to cybersecurity attacks on a scale that some say is previously unknown to the financial system, and it could target, as they're trying to tokenize trillions of dollars. They're trying to tokenize trillions of dollars of real world assets and liabilities, and that could be a real blow. What are your thoughts?
So the way I see permission and permissionless blockchains, it's not centralized versus decentralized to my eyes. Is the degree of decentralization, like how much do you want it to be decentralized? Even in permission blockchain networks, it is to an extent decentralized, but they run limited nodes. The validators are limited. So, it is on chain still, but it is not like decentralized globally. So another term which is used for this kind of an infrastructure is private blockchains. And then for the permissionless one, which is like completely open and global, that's like the public blockchains.
So that's the same as a closed-end distributed ledger, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of the applications, even I see it as permission blockchains or private blockchains, pardon me, are going to be used by enterprises and large-scale organizations much more than they prefer using open blockchains. So there are two worlds that operate in the blockchain industry. Number one is large-scale enterprises who wants to kind of use blockchains for, let's say, supply chain or any other use case that they want to have internally, putting their some sections on chain, etc., etc. They prefer having a very controlled environment, and they prefer having data on premise. They don't like to be toyed with their data. Any large organization would not be okay with it at all. So they move towards the permission blockchain infrastructure. They want all the benefits of the blockchain infrastructure, which is immutability, every stakeholder having a visibility and no single point of failure. They want that. But at the same time, data should be restricted in their confined environment, as they say. And they said their selective validators, their selective nodes are run to kind of take care of that infrastructure. Whereas the second world that operates is the larger, the DeFi and the crypto world, for that matter. All these new tokens which are getting launched on the DeFi space, decentralized exchanges, more and more RWA projects coming into picture. They operate in a much larger retail participation ecosystem, and they operate in a public ledger format where more and more more and more developers, more and more retail users, more and more retail customers can come and participate and exchange. So these are the two worlds that operate. Now, addressing the concern of security, it's equal in both to my eyes. It's because at the end of the day, you are using an infrastructure for a specified purpose. That is where the why component comes into picture. Why are you using this infrastructure? The first group that I spoke about, which is large enterprises, is using it for a limited purpose. For the second group, which is the crypto audience, is using it for a different purpose. But security embedment into this is constant, right? There is no scope for compromise on either side. And hence, I don't see a difference in the application of the security layer or even the speed or the scalability in either of the two. It's just using an infrastructure for a different purpose altogether. But rest, to my eyes, individually remains the same, like having a very foundationally strong and secure infra, because anything goes wrong on either side, the repercussions are going to be huge.
You know a great deal about Web3.
Mhm.
In your view, why does it matter now, and more importantly, why will it matter in the future to the generations that are up and coming?
Freedom. Very simple answer is freedom. Humans love freedom. Humans love an element of having flexibility. Every time if you have to seek permission to do something, every time you are told, no, you can't do this, there is a sense of irritation that drives within your body. If I'm capable of doing something, I should be allowed to do it on my own. And that is why that is where more and more platforms and infrastructures are coming into picture, solving this particular problem. Why did social media became so popular? Why did Facebook became $1 billion industry, and then Instagram, etc., etc.? People love freedom. People love to connect. People love to express their point of view. People love to do business in the way they like to do. That's why Facebook started doing business. Now WhatsApp has a business account. You can do a lot of business on Instagram. Everybody likes independence.
Is it really freedom if you're glued to social media? One would say that's, how can I put it? If I were to draw the analogy of, Brave New World versus 1984, one is oppression by overt force from top down, and the other is oppression by getting you to be a slave to your desires. Then it seems as though we are heading into that Brave New World where you're a slave to your desires. The system facilitates it. You're glued to social media. That would seem to me that serves to impede human freedom and creativity. If you're giving people more choices, more drugs of choice, more ways to waste and fritter away your time and your life, because frankly, these technologies can be used for good for those with vision and drive, or they can be a way for you to waste away your life.
Well, and this is something, again, like EIT pointed out, this has been one of the biggest debates of our age in terms of the more and more social media usage that we have been seeing. And my point of view on this is very simple. Who decides?
But that's a very libertarian point of view, I might add.
Exactly. The tools you get in your hand, at the end of the day, how you utilize those is your choice.
But don't people need to play devil's advocate? Some would say that sometimes society needs to step in to play the role of the father, of the parent, to protect people from themselves.
Whose society? How do you define society?
Well, that'll be defined within post-Westphalia, post-World War II, the main polities that we're looking at are nation states.
Exactly. And that is where, again, control comes into picture and the freedom goes away, right? That's why I come back to the point. It's not freedom if some set of individuals everybody comes from a different background. Everybody has a different point of view. Everybody has a different set of education. And hence, everybody has different choices that they decide to make.
But social media crosses borders.
Exactly. Then how?
Except where nation states erected barriers like firewall.
Correct. Now, as long as it is some kind of checks and balances are applied for national security, that's definitely required and that should be done. But I don't think it is correct for deciding what is right and wrong for the public at large. They should be allowed to use the tools as they like, and I think that's what freedom is. Except the case of national security, that every country decides, what is in the national interest and what is not. But other than that, I mean, I've never been a fan of anybody, saying that there are more negatives to something than positives. I think people should be allowed to take that decision Uh, uh, yeah, I mean,
It's a
in
very
like,
That's very John Stuart Mill, the godfather of the libertarians. It's very John Stuart Mill type argument that the rights of the individual should reign supreme, barring extremely compelling state interests to the contrary. So, simply put, then, Web3 is going to make us safer. Web3 is going to make us freer because it's going to give us more choices. Is that the crux of your argument?
yes, more choices, and everybody gets the opportunity to be independent, and that's why we call it a trustless society, where you are trusted with your own money, you are trusted with your own decisions. Anybody can launch a project today. If I have to raise capital in this world, uh, either I have to go through a venture capital route, or I go IPO. So it's like, top 5% of the people wanting to do business gets access. But in the world of Web3 and blockchain, anybody can launch their tokens, as long as they have the right set of tools and trainings and get exposure to raising capital. So smallest as small as this argument, I mean, there's a lot of mass participation for the community at large that the Web3 opens up, and it makes the world more creative. And I think that's where ownership, you get to own your data, you get to get benefit from your data, rather than, the big tech giants taking most of the capital out, and you sitting back in terms of, hey, my data got utilized, somebody else is making money. No, you become your own boss. So that's and I think that's a fair world we live in.
I can certainly see that having more platforms gives those that were previously blocked entry to certain fields, professions, industries, a lot more choices. The internet has aided the growth of many small family businesses. In Hollywood, for the longest time, if you weren't an insider, good luck getting your screenplay, your script read. Yeah. Whereas now, first-time screenwriters are getting offers by posting their scripts to the Blacklist, which is a website. So, I can certainly see that. But my next point on Web3 is this: people have pointed out that Web 3.0 is not the same as Web 3. They are connected, but they're not necessarily the same thing. Could you explain that dichotomy? Is it worth noting, or is it just a matter of semantics?
Yeah, I mean, this is like some sections to create this argument. To my eyes, there's no difference. Web 1 was read only, Web 2 was read and write, and Web 3 is like read, write, and own. That's how the term came into picture. And yeah, I know some people talk about Web 3 being different than Web 3.2. I've never understood that. I've never paid attention to it as well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see any difference. It's just three different ages of internet that we usually talk about. That's what Web 1, 2, and 3. I don't see a difference between 3 and 3.0. I've never understood that difference, honestly.
There's something you pointed out earlier, that the discipline and the business savvy gave you an edge as a creative. And that's interesting, because that, from the creative people I've known in my life, this is anecdotal, but my sense is that there's a greater truth to it. It's true more often than not. People with the artistic temperament, people from the fine arts, are not very practical. They tend to don't focus as much on finances and managing their money and the importance of commerce and entrepreneurialism, and that it isn't just about doing your art, but promoting your work. Or if you're not capable or don't have the time to do that, at least hire competent people who can help you.
Yeah,
they tend to turn a blind eye to that, and if they were more tuned in, they'd realize commerce is the means by which you can spread your art, spread your name, word gets around about you, and that you can make a living and raise your fortune. What can be done then to emphasize the importance of business savvy and entrepreneurialism amongst the creative classes, because that's something in my view that many of them are lacking in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think creativity is the most overused and abused term in the youth today. Under the umbrella of being creative, I see most of the people finding excuses to being one, not disciplined, two, not following the right path of creating something meaningful. It's there has to be a balance. Of course, creativity sometimes requires you to lose track of time, lose your where you are, etc., etc. And that's needed. That's needed that to kind of devote yourself to build anything. There is a sense of devotion which is required. But at the end of the day, it has to translate into something which is output oriented, and it can't be used as an umbrella to devoid yourself from the realities of life. It's very easy to say, hey, I'm creative, I'm lost. This is the time in which my creativity sparks, and hence I operate in this manner. And while you do that, I see most of these things turning out to be excuses, very honestly. It has to be married with an end goal. Just being creative does not pay your bills. Finding excuses under any kind of an umbrella does not pay your bills. Being productive and producing something at the end of the day does. So everything should have an angle of commerce attached to it. And for that, you have to operate in a specific way. And now there are ways in which you respect creativity and marry it with commerce. So even in my company, I have a policy of unlimited leaves. We don't track leaves. We don't track what time somebody logs in, what time somebody logs out. The way I like to operate is, okay, something needs to go out in 3 days. Fine. Do it whenever you want, crawl wherever you want, however you want. Nobody's going to keep a track. Now, within these 3 days, people are free to use their creativity, their fine time, etc., etc. But the output has to go out in 3 days. Very simply put. Because if that does not go out, then the business is going to get impacted. Right? So this is how usually I think the youth needs to have some sort of benchmarks to marry themselves to, and not just keep slowing down. And I've always believed that there's this interesting ad that Red Bull gives you wings. I think carelessness gives you more wings than any other drug you can imagine. Being careless and being having a feeling of being rebellious gives you a different kind of dopamine. And you start believing that, hey, I operate in my own passion. I don't listen to anybody. I am creative. This is how I operate.
Yes, I believe hopium is what it's called.
Okay. I think this is an indication of lack of maturity and a complete waste of the most precious resource and asset that God has given us, which is time. So one has to find a balance. Be creative, of course. Operate in your own fashion. I'm a big advocate of independence and freedom, like I spoke about. I believe that people come from different cultures and that they have a different style of operating. Completely respect that. But everything ultimately has to marry towards an end goal and a benchmark. That should be kept in mind. That should not be sacrificed in the name of creativity.
Agreed. It has to serve a practical goal, a practical need. Can't be art for art's sake, but something that has a market value that people want to buy. Only then can you earn a living, because the attitude seems to be, okay, well, we're artists. We don't have to play by society's rules. Society should just be grateful to have us and continue to fund us and support us because we produce art and we're the emotional outlet for society. But, there are a lot of dead and starving artists that have that mindset, and the world got along just fine without them. The critique, though, of today's generation is, I guess, Generation Y, the same as millennials and the Generation Z. the critique of them is they think their ideas are so good, and the older generation are sticking around and not creating enough space for them to come in, and they're not being, the barriers to entry. Take the film industry. I attended an AmCham, American Chamber of Commerce event, some years ago, and members of some of the studios locally were present. And many youngsters at the Academy of Performing Arts, HKU, others who are budding screenwriters, have said to me over the years, they just won't read my script. It's hard for us to break into the industry. Then you've got the people in the studio saying, okay, you think? Look, he said, we get no shortage of scripts, but a lot of the time, a lot of young people, they overestimate the quality of their work. They overestimate their own work. And that maybe that's a sign of growing up in popular times, and having parents tell you you're wonderful and you can achieve whatever you want to. Not true. Right from the moment you start to grow up and go through life's phases, certain doors close, certain doors open up, and the claim is we can't break into the film industry. Or the film exec said to me, we get no shortage of scripts. And he said, if I got even one good script, I'm willing to write a check for $1 million right on the spot and give it to them. He said, maybe of the scripts we get, maybe 7 to 9% are any good. And of that 7 to 9 of the total, okay. And maybe 3 to 5% have a future being filmed in some capacity, being used to some degree. So there seems to be that mismatch then between the artists who are trying to break in versus the industry telling them, no, the quality of your work just isn't there. A lot of this is derivative work. You haven't lived enough. You haven't seen enough. And that's a consequence. Here a lot of people live sheltered lives. Many employees will flat out say, I'd rather hire an 18 to 22-year-old Westerner, someone who's grown up outside of Hong Kong, than hire a 30-year-old Hong Konger, because I'm hiring a 30-year-old child. So there is that. But what advice then would you give young people in the law school, or in our business school, or in general that we are affiliated with a law school? What advice would you give them going forward in terms of their careers and the impact that quantum computing and Web3 will have on their lives, both personally and professionally?
Well, the very simple and very targeted piece of advice that
will it impact the professional law? Will it impact finance? Will it impact the compliance profession? These are the kinds of things they're probably wondering about.
See, the industry that we're speaking about is going to be impacting across verticals. Goes without saying. But if I may also talk about the point that you mentioned about, right, the youngsters feeling rebellious about the ideas and all. And I think that is fine.
Yeah, we just can't get our dues. They're not letting us scale the ladder of success, whereas earlier generations seem to understand these things take time.
Correct. So let's break it down, right? Number one is building something. So I've always believed value of an idea is worth 0. Against, like, you'll see a lot of visionary speakers speaking, an idea is worth billions. No, it's not. The value of an idea is 0. The actual value is in the execution of that idea, and that is where the real hustle goes down. I came up with the idea of building a quantum secure blockchain. That's not going to create any impact. That's not going to attract the best people in the world to work with me. That's not going to raise capital for me. That's not going to result in building the product. An idea is worth 0. The actual value is in the execution of that idea. How do you design it? How do you shape it? It's really like a chessboard. That is the most beautiful art in the world, of designing and executing an idea and giving it a life, bringing it to the world. That's where real hustle is. That's where you have sleepless nights. That's where you have to be in a war mode always. So the youngsters who believes that, okay, I'm going to have an idea and it's going to change the world. No, wake up. It's not going to. You have to be prepared to be alone. You have to be prepared to fight wars, and you have to be prepared to go against the norms. If you're not up for that hustle, entrepreneurship is not for you. Just because you believe that I'm going to come up with an idea and somebody should fund it, that's not how it works. People on the other side of the table who are looking to fund you, or the customers who want to use your product, are expecting this kind of a hustle. And a good product is never going to come out unless you really give in your life to it. So that's the first thing to remember. The value of an idea is zero. Value of execution is infinity. So you have to pay importance to execution to start with. And this becomes very important because everybody loves their baby. My baby is the best baby in the world. Every parent believes that their kid is the best kid in the world. Rest everybody is idiots. Rest everybody don't know something, or rest everybody lacks something, at least something, right? My baby is 100%. That's the same logic that gets applied in business when people come up with some ideas. Like, this is the idea that's going to change the world. This is the next Apple. This is the next Tesla. This is the next biggest company in the world. But that's not the case. The reality begins once you start putting these things into paper, start designing it, start executing it. And that's where the real world is. So you have to really, give in everything that you have every day of your life to make something meaningful. That's one thing to be remembered. And I cannot emphasize on it enough. Whenever I speak with the young generation today, who's trying to build something, who's just stepping into entrepreneurship, this is the first thing that I tell them. That do not pay so much importance to idea. It's worth zero. Now, coming to how the world of blockchain, quantum computing, and all of this is going to impact different verticals, legal industries, etc. Well, I mean, each and everything that we see around us today is going to be impacted and going to be touched upon by these new technologies for sure. We are already seeing the impact of AI on the legal profession, where startups like Harvey has become now, I think, $1 billion company as an AI legal consultant for deriving data, etc. Like that, even in the blockchain industry, we are going to see a lot of things coming into picture. I think that's the most important and the most beautiful aspect of new and emerging technologies coming in, that there's so much to discover. And the reason I paid so much importance to the idea is because we are entering this phase, which is emerging technology, and there is so much to discover. There is going to be millions of ideas which will flow around, popping up. Okay, let's do this. Let's use the technology and do this, which is beautiful, which is how it should be. But I really insist and urge all the people who come up with these ideas to not start jumping just basis the idea. Have a plan of implementation, have an execution strategy, and be prepared to just almost sacrifice everything that you have to make that dream a reality. If you are not ready for the sacrifice, this is not for you. Then you better go on with the mainstream professions of joining a good company and having a comfortable life. Entrepreneurship requires tremendous sacrifices.
It's interesting that you used a military analogy with regards to creative types. Almost as though you're suggesting that creative people would be better off if they adopted a war footing, if they took on that level of seriousness and discipline in terms of being able to realize their goals. That's exactly the point of a book I would recommend called The War of Art.
Yeah.
Spencer's Art of War. The War of Art makes exactly that point. And I remember a quote which I think you told me was from your father's generation. If you want to prevail in war, if you want less stress in war, sweat and peace.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
And I think that's probably a good place to leave it, unless there was something you feel we didn't cover that you'd like to mention.
No, I think this was an amazing conversation, Ajay. I'm glad, and thank you so much for inviting me on this podcast and having this conversation. I loved it. We touched upon various topics, and I look forward that whatever we have discussed can add value to our listeners and leave some impact on their life.
thank you for that, and we'll be keen to have you again. Kapil Dhiman, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you, Ajay.
And to our listeners, thank you. Until next time.